John, good to have you here. Tell us a little bit about you guys and what you do. You actually provide technologies, I should say, to energy grids that help them with reliability and resilience. What exactly are you up to?
Yeah, so at OATI, and we might not be a familiar name to your audience, we are privately owned, have been around for 3 decades now. We like to say that the grid runs on OATI. We are the digital infrastructure that powers much of the North American grid. We serve 95% of utilities in North America in various ways, shapes, and forms. That goes all the way down to the residential level and helping utilities dynamically manage consumer-owned devices like a smart thermostat or solar panels or batteries, and then all the way up into commodity trading and energy markets and enabling trades and markets at the bulk power level. So for utilities across the country, 13 gigawatts of load under management, we help them ride through some of these extreme events and stresses to the grid.
So how do you do that? Because like Carol mentioned, like you mentioned, 2,300 customers, you serve every major grid operator in North America. What does the tech actually do behind the scenes that helps grid operators and customers?
Yeah, so our smart grid platform is called a distributed energy resource management system. So essentially what a DERMS is, and that's, colloquially how we call it in the industry, that allows the industry or the utility to onboard customers, enroll their devices, validate that those customers can serve a need of the grid, can provide a grid service. So that's often ticking up a few degrees on your thermostat to relieve grid stress. And what we do with Con Ed and many others, so you mentioned 23, we serve about 250 utilities in the United States are using our smart grid platform. They will use the platform to notify customers, onboard them. There's a number of different automations that happen behind the scenes to validate that device will perform when called upon during a stressful event for the grid. We've been experiencing a lot of those this summer. And then after the event takes place, our platform validates then which devices performed up to expectations and then helps utilities execute settlements. Well, so in which cases utilities have incentive programs in place, we help them sort that out.
Okay. So John, one question that we have, and we've talked a lot about this over the last couple of years actually at this point, is the different stress on the grid in the world of AI and the way that data centers are pulling energy. What have you seen in terms of grid resilience in an era where AI companies and data centers are using so much electricity? Is the grid becoming more fragile? Is it becoming less reliable as a result of this draw? What's happening?
Well, we know that access to power is the biggest constraint on AI growth right now. I think that's now become the consensus. The North American Grid Reliability Watchdog, so that's NERC, has raised a number of red flags about large load growth, primarily from AI data centers. The impact is not so much what they are drawing, but what happens in the event that load disappears or that it causes some disturbance on the grid. So with smart grid technology, utilities can identify when those disturbances take place and, in our platform's case, really surgically target the areas of the grid at a circuit by circuit level that are experiencing stress and need load shifted away or need some kind of intervention to avoid a larger impact on the broader customer base. So I think that the data centers have a high demand for power isn't necessarily the biggest issue. It's when events take place, when things go wrong at the edge, how will that impact the rest of the grid? Because you think some of these data centers are 500 megawatts, a gigawatt larger. I mean, the loads of an entire city are now in a single industrial complex or campus. When that disappears, the grid is looking for that load. It's all about, balancing supply and demand. And when your demand evaporates, that's a major concern. And we've seen, some challenges with that in the recent years. I mean, Data Center Alley in Northern Virginia dealt with some grid disturbances and is now, unfortunately paving the way for everyone else to recognize what, mitigation steps need to take place for other regions to make sure that those events don't cause broader damage.
I think this might be from your website, so forgive me. It says, think of you guys as an air traffic control system for electricity. Just as a flight tracker makes sure airplanes do not crash and arrive safely, OATI software makes sure power flows perfectly through the grid, preventing blackouts and balancing supply and demand. Accurate, correct? So I guess, we're talking about grid resilience, and I get that. But also then, are we increasingly seeing supply and demand determined not by homeowners turning on their thermometer or lowering it or raising it or turning off systems, but it's taken out of our hands because there's somebody at a higher level saying, well, we've got to make sure hospitals have it, who's making kind of the grid prioritization decisions at this point? It's kind of taken out of consumers' hands in a big way, no?
Well, I think there's a couple of ways to think about this, and every utility, every grid is a little bit different. So that it's important to acknowledge that nuance, especially for you in New York City. So that's a highly urban environment. So voluntary calls for load reduction do have an impact. They are often successful in bringing down peak loads. So the reason that city or state leadership, even utilities, issue that call without offering really anything in return except for help your neighbor, help critical facilities, they do it because it works. So every megawatt you can save by just asking people to be considerate of their neighbors is worth it. It saves money. It helps for broader grid reliability. When you speak to who's making the decision in the priority stack, a lot of that is determined by energy markets themselves, pricing, congestion, on the transmission grid, which is essentially the highway for electricity, not necessarily the poles and wires you see out the window of your home. But in New York City, the impact of homeowners is significant. Yeah. But it's also important to acknowledge that demand response, which that's what we call it, when you enroll in a program to get a benefit, it exists on the commercial side too. So businesses, data centers, they are participating in similar calls.